Thanks for joining us here on News Channel 25 WVTT. I'm Alexa Olson.
And I'm Jeff Angelonis. Good evening. The big story tonight on Twin Tiers Evening News. Pope Benedict XVI met for the last time earlier today with the College of Cardinals. They'll be selecting the next pope. CNN's John Allen takes an historical look at the selection process.
The new pope is always chosen by the members of the College of Cardinals. They're the highest office in the church under the pope himself. Normally, when a papacy ends, either through death or resignation, cardinals from around the world gather in Rome. They have daily meetings to talk about the issues facing the church and the qualities the new pope needs. We're talking about slightly over 100 cardinals who file into the Sistine Chapel, cast ballots, and pick a pope. Conclave is a term that comes from two Latin words meaning with a key. It refers to the fact that the cardinals are locked behind closed doors while they go through a highly ceremonial process of casting ballots and then burning them. Then it goes as long as it takes for someone to get 2/3. The shortest conclave in history took a couple of hours. The longest one took 3 years. In the old days, they would burn ballots largely because they wanted to maintain the secrecy of the conclave. That is, they didn't want the vote totals to get out. What they realized is that when people saw the smoke from the chimney atop the Sistine Chapel, they knew a round of balloting had ended. And so they came up with this system where they would put chemicals into the mix to turn the smoke black if no pope had been elected and white if a pope had been elected. In theory, according to the law of the church, any person who is eligible for ordination to the priesthood and therefore an unmarried male could be elected as pope. But in practice, the new pope will be elected from among the cardinals who are voting, that is, the cardinals who are under the age of 80 who will take part in this election. Which means that the roughly 115 cardinals aren't merely voters, they are all also candidates. When a candidate crosses that 2/3 threshold, another cardinal will approach him and say, "Do you accept your canonically valid election as supreme pontiff?" If he answers yes, from that moment forward, he becomes the pope. The next question is, by what name will you be known? And at that stage, the new pope tells his brother cardinals what he wants to be called. And then a few minutes later, when the announcement is made from a balcony outside St. Peter's Square, the whole world will know the name of the new pope.
Meanwhile, back in the United States, barring some totally unexpected compromise by Congress, sequestration budget cuts hit tomorrow. WVTT's Valerie Tysander explains what it means for those of us here in the Twin Tiers.
Sequestration. It's the dreaded S word. Politicians are making it out to be a disastrous situation. But would it really be so bad? Here's what it would mean for the Twin Tiers.
This is going to be a big hit on the economy.
If reports are to be believed, it will impact the Twin Tiers more than other areas in the country.
The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is set to feel the impact of sequestration more than most states, yet has offered no constructive plan forward.
Here's what will happen. There will be airport delays. The TSA's budget will get slashed by $300 million. That means many air traffic controllers will not be working this summer. Lots of small airports like Bradford Regional will likely experience a temporary shutdown. Meat inspecting plants will shut down across the country for an unknown period of time. That means many Americans may be forced to go vegetarian, as meat prices will likely skyrocket. If there are any major storms, FEMA will be unable to send aid, at least for a while, as $375 million will get cut from their budget. And trips to national parks may have to wait. $110 million is going to get slashed from the National Park Service. That means some parks may close or have delayed openings. It's unlikely to affect most of us right away, but according to Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano, it will be more of a rolling ball effect.
We all must make sacrifices in order to reduce the debt and fix Washington, for we can no longer spend $1 trillion more than we take in each year.
It's important to note that no one really knows what would happen if sequestration does take place. Federal employers must legally give their employees 30 days notice if they're going to put them on furlough, and so people would still have their jobs until April. In the WVTT Digital Newsroom, I'm Valerie Tysaner. Back to you in the studio.
For more on this story and what sequestration means to you, visit our website, WVTTnews.com. Alexa.
Jeff, today in Albany, hundreds of New Yorkers traveled to the Capitol to protest the new gun laws. 16 buses left the Buffalo area today carrying protesters on their way to rally against the new SAFE Act. State lawmakers are in for a long fight as thousands of supporters are looking for the entire law to be overturned. Just a few weeks ago, a similar gun rally was held at the state's Capitol, and just this past weekend, a gun rally right here in our backyard at Lincoln Park in Olean, which brought out hundreds of protesters whose main argument is that of protection when it comes to the Second Amendment.
And speaking of guns, Alexa, Cattaraugus County can't keep up with the number of gun permits coming in. They've had so many, in fact, that they've had to hire a part-time clerk in order to handle the volume. WVTT caught up with County Legislator John Padlow, who recapped last night's meeting.
Cattaraugus County Legislature met on Wednesday afternoon and approved creating a part-time position of a pistol permit clerk, and that's partially due to an increase in number of gun permit applications that have been filed.
As the Twin Tiers gets blanketed with a fresh layer of snow, children everywhere are looking to hit the slopes a few more times before spring. But a state assemblyman wants to pass a piece of legislation that would require children under the age of 14 to wear helmets while sledding, tubing, skiing, or snowboarding. Now, this proposed bill is similar to the existing bike helmet laws that are currently enforced in the state. And if this measure is passed, then parents could be fined up to $50 if their children are not wearing protective headgear. WVTT sent out a camera crew to ask people in the Twin Tiers their view on this new proposed legislation.
I don't think it's really a bad idea. Probably save a lot of injury. Protect the kids too.
They should wear helmets. Should, mandatory.
Definitely?
Yeah, definitely.
I think anytime you're moving on anything, skates, you ought to have a helmet. Unless you want to be a vegetable or be a paraplegic or brain dead, whatever.
The SPCA in Salamanca could be getting a little bit more crowded now that they've rescued 74 cats. The animal shelter is asking for help to care for those animals. 11 of them are pregnant. The shelter is looking for donations of cat litter and cat food to help ease the strain on that shelter in Salamanca.
A car crash in the town of Ward earlier today. Around 9:30 this morning, Scioto Fire Department was dispatched to County Road 10, where a car had gone over an embankment. According to authorities, there were 2 passengers in the vehicle. Wellsville Fire and Rescue was also dispatched to the scene. No word yet on how serious the incident was.
Authorities say a truck carrying 36 head of cattle has crashed and overturned on a rural New York highway, killing 11 of the animals. The truck was hauling 34 head of cattle when it crashed late Wednesday on State Route 8, about 50 miles southeast of Syracuse. Authorities say it took several hours to clean up the crash scene, and veterinarians were called in to treat injured cattle. The accident occurred while roads were slippery from Wednesday night's snowstorm.
Gas prices rose 10% this month, making it the worst February on record. But AAA says relief at the pump is on its way. Apparently, the higher gas prices are the result of a slowdown at several refineries undergoing equipment upgrades. Less production meant higher prices for the time being. AAA says the work should be completed in the coming weeks, and falling gas prices are expected to follow.
The TLC Health Network is gearing up to build a $23 million facility in Perrysburg. The building replaces the Tri-County Memorial Hospital, which was destroyed in a 2009 flood in Gowanda, New York. This new building is about a mile away from the original facility, and according to reports, plans have already been filed with the New York State Department of Health for that new hospital in Cattaraugus County.
And if you happened to be in Kane earlier today, you may have noticed the McKean County Fire Company was dispatched to the Kane Community Hospital for a fire, but that was a false alarm. No fire at the hospital today. And St. Bonaventure University will welcome agricultural reporter Tom Rivers to campus to share what he learned firsthand about working conditions facing migrant farm laborers in Western New York. Rivers will present From Field to Fork, a reporter experience farm work at 7 p.m. Thursday, March 14th in the Dresser Auditorium of the John J. Murphy Building. The public is invited. Jeff?
Alexa, still lots more news coming up here on News Channel 25. We'll take our first look at WVTT weather. Also coming up, our new WVTT information overload segment and a look at the closing numbers on Wall Street. It's all straight ahead. You stay tuned. This is News Channel 25, WVTT.